Hi guys, I'm Shmi. Hello and welcome back to the channel where you join me today in Germany to take my first ever full look and consequently first ever drive in this, the new Maserati MC20. It is a car that is very important for the brand and one I am personally intrigued by as well. And today I'm here at the Motor World in Cologne with Maserati Köln, Jacob Sports Cars, to take a full look and check this out. We'll go through all of the details, explore the exterior, check out the interior, of course talk a bit about this new engine, the Nettuno 3-litre twin turbocharged V6 that makes over 600 horsepower, and crucially go and find out what it's like to drive out on the roads here in Germany. Thankfully, the weather is on side. We do have winter tyres fitted to the MC20, but I'm really quite looking forward to finding out more about this. So let's do it, take a full look today at the new Maserati MC20. Initial impressions of the new Maserati MC20. This is a very good looking car, but it's a car that I think is fairly misunderstood at the moment, and why I'm really rather interested to spend some time with it today to get to know about it, to run through it, and of course to go and drive it. It launched last year, a peculiar year of course for such an important introduction for the brand, a return to having a mid-engined car in the lineup after the MC12 that arrived back in 2004, the sister car to the Ferrari Enzo, of which 50 road cars were made, plus 12 racing cars, which scored great successes in the FIA GT and GT1 championships. But this is named after Maserati Corsa 2020. I only saw one myself for the first time quite recently, and this is the first occasion where I've really been able to spend some significant time taking it all in, looking at the design details, the different elements that link to this emblem that is synonymous with the brand, the three-pronged trident, and you start to spot those as you go around. It's really quite clever. For example, inside the headlights, you've got the three blades. Look at the wheels. This is the upgrade forged wheel option with the triple spokes. Along the doors here, you've got these three elements to that design detail. You've got the three vents on the side of the engine bay cover, and you even have the trident graphic there in the plexiglass rear window. Now, a big part of this car is the engine. It's the Nettuno engine that they've introduced, Maserati's own engine, but combines with the fact that it has a carbon fiber tub. You've got a rear-driven 7-speed dual-clutch gearbox super sports car. It's a series production car. It's not super limited edition per number like the MC12, for example, but they are not exactly in plentiful supply. There is quite the backlog in terms of orders for the new MC20s. If we come and take a better look at this though, got the key for the car here, just in a little case at the moment. Double press of this button pops open the boot, and you can see the Nettuno that sits right down there. It's a new 3-litre twin turbocharged V6 making 630 horsepower, coincidentally the same power as the MC12. It makes 730 newton meters of torque, and that means, thanks to the dual clutch gearbox, you will get the 0 to 100 kilometer per hour sprint, that's 62 miles an hour, completed in under 3 seconds, in just 2.9 seconds. It will do the 0 to 200 kilometer per hour, or 124 mile per hour sprint in only 8.8 seconds, and go on to a top speed of 325 kilometers per hour, that's 202 miles per hour. Plentiful performance then, which we can experience shortly. Although we are here in Germany, it is very cold outside, and we do have the winter tyres fitted, which I believe are speed limited to 270 or 280 kilometers per hour or so. But the design, of course, continues beyond that. You have quite a long overhang at the front end. You've got this traditional look with the circular Maserati grille up front. Obviously, a lot of openings for cooling and airflow that are managed and sent through various channels within the car. As you come round here behind the front wheels, you'll notice how open this is to reduce the swelling that you have inside the front wheel wells, and of course to direct air around and through to the various coolers that you have for the engine back here. There's an integrated lip spoiler at the very rear across the back, which is low, which is sleek, which is wide. The design of these tail lights really stands out to me as well. And then you have the two fairly centrally mounted round titanium exhaust tips, which you can see are bluing slightly on this car, which has done some good mileage already. It also has the optional upgraded carbon ceramic brakes, so very well equipped. But let's come and check out the interior as well. Pop round towards the side here. We have dihedral doors that open outwards, always for some supercar drama. We've got the carbon fibre tub, which is obviously adds rigidity, keeps weight down. It's about 1450 kilos or so for the car overall. You can have an optional bucket seat as well, but there are some amazing details even inside here, the way they've laser etched the Alcantara for the seat inserts and also on the doors. We've got the yellow contrast stitch in here, lots of carbon fibre on the steering wheel, on the central tunnel, the dry satin carbon fibre, the floating screen in the centre, and we will go through the interior in more detail a little bit later, but for the moment let me step inside the MC20 here. The start button is here on the steering wheel. We'll wake up the car for a moment. We have a rear view camera in the mirror, but a second press of the button will start it up, and that V6 thunders into action. So we're going to take this out for a drive to go and experience it. I've been looking forward to driving the MC20 for a while, but today, thanks to the team here at Maserati Cologne, it is time to go try it myself and see what it's like on the road. On the move, and to begin, I'm driving in GT mode. The car has a series of different driving modes, from wet to GT to sport to Corsa to everything off. We're not going to be going everything off, but like this, in GT mode, in automatic, it is very smooth, surprisingly quiet and calm, and gives you this sense that this is actually a car that you could daily drive. It feels quite wide on the road. I've been a little bit conscious of that, obviously getting back into a left-hand drive car, etc. But it's very easy to drive. The steering is very light. There's nothing that's overwhelming or intimidating. It is this middle balance of a car that can be a daily super sports car. I think that's exactly what they were going for with the introduction of the MC20. As you start to build in some throttle, you can hear a lot of the intake sound, obviously the twin turbos that are on the V6. You can hear a little bit of the grumble, and it's quite a low-pitched V6 sound. Now, if I go into manual with the press of the button, we are still in the GT mode. Just drop down the gears. Of course, the dual clutch shifts very quickly, and you get plenty of burbles and fun sounds out of the back of it. If we turn it up with the central toggle into sport, it stiffens the suspension. Of course, the adaptive suspension changes between the different driving modes, as does the powertrain, the delivery, the throttle response, and numerous other elements. But it's a very characterful engine sound. That's one of the first things you notice with this. Like, for example, when I drive in my Ford GT, it's very quick for people to say, oh, it's a V6, it can't be great. But it can have a lot of character. And V6s actually make a really nice raspy sound. I've always been a big fan of 6-cylinder engines. So we're going to head out onto the Autobahn, a restricted section for the time being, but maybe we'll get to open it up in a moment. Like this, in sport, I can tell that the suspension is firmer, but there is a button to change that. So when you're in sport, you can actually put it back into soft and make it more of a gentle ride should you wish. So akin to the way Ferrari do it. And you've got these lovely extended carbon fibre shift paddles. They're aluminium by default, but with the carbon pack on the inside, you get the carbon fibre. Fixed to the column, I generally prefer them when they're mounted to the steering wheel, but kind of get used to both ways round. Different options, different people have different preferences, and you've got some great information. You can cycle through the displays on the screen, so you can change what you're looking at: boost, torque, G-force sensors, tyre temps, everything cold at the moment, pressures are all good, or turn that off, and the same on the other side as well. So there's plenty to it that you can adjust and shuffle, although we're sitting in a bit of traffic, which isn't good for anybody when we're enjoying or trying to enjoy a drive in a brand new model car like this. So hopefully we can get out of this and go find somewhere where we can enjoy it a little bit more. This is better. Things start to open up a little bit more, though it is fairly busy out on the roads today. But it's interesting how you feel in this, some of that, let's say, Ferrari characteristic. It feels quite lively, it feels quite sprightly, and there's a lot of sound from the intakes. If you do drop down the gears and just give it a short kind of stab on the throttle, you have a lot of intake swooshing going on, a lot of sounds, a lot of different noises, things that just make it exciting. And if we go up into Corsa mode, which you do by holding the toggle to the right, you get a different display on the dashboard. It's all set up to be that little bit more, let's say, race car orientated. And obviously Corsa, Maserati Corsa, is Maserati's, let's say, racing arm. The MC12 originally was Maserati's return after 37 years back into the world of motorsport. Now, there aren't any official lines at the moment for a racing derivative of this, but I think it would be fairly safe money to assume that a GT4 or a GT3 or something will come down the lines. What they have said is that there will be other derivatives. There will be a fully electric version of the MC20. That's already in the works. There will be a Spider. There will be a hybrid version. There will be the Spider of the electric and the hybrid. So this platform has been developed from the outset to be prepared for this next generation. And to be honest, while you might think it's peculiar for me as a petrol head, I'm actually really interested to see what they do with the electric MC20, because there isn't really anything in that segment at the moment. If you want an electric sports car, the options basically are in hypercar territory. You have to spend a few million to be able to find something that does that. So I find this really very interesting as to what they're going to do with it. Now, crawling along like this, Corsa is probably not the wisest of modes. This is where you'd go back into GT, let it soften up, go back into automatic. It will pop it up into 7th. It was restricted from going into 7th, I noticed, in Corsa mode there, perhaps a speed limit on it. And it's quiet, it's calm, the ride is pretty soft and gentle, which is again, you know, what you would want something like this actually to offer you, to be able to do. And it's just a gentle, easy cruise. And I think so many cars now get carried away by being super hardcore and crazy, and it's nice to drive something that hasn't tried to do that. We have the rear view mirror camera display. You can actually flick it and have an actual mirror, but you can't really see anything in it, so that's not worth wasting your time with. There's a little bit of storage space in here behind the seats. You can maybe get some soft bags or soft luggage just squeezed in back there, but you're not going to be taking a lot of things with you when driving in an MC20. This is not that kind of car. It's much more, I guess, the daily run. Maybe if you need to squeeze in some bags for a road trip, driving holiday, you can work at it, but it will be working at it. You're not going to be getting a lot in. As unfortunately, we found some more roadworks. I'm not doing very well with this today, but it is what it is. Now we return to Destricted Autobahn. I am in GT mode, having been cruising. When you go into sport, it instantly gets a lot more responsive. So let's hold it and turn it into Corsa. We'll put it into the softer or mid suspension. We will go manual, start just dropping down some of the gears. It is still fairly busy out here, but an opportunity to feel some of this power, because 630 horsepower and 730 newton meters, these are big figures, and a top speed over 200 miles per hour out of this. It feels quite light and nimble as well while you're driving, but not in a way that makes it feel like you get thrown away everywhere. It isn't too stiff or anything like that. Drop it down to 3rd gear, 5,000 RPM. We've got a red line up towards 8,000. Yeah. That's when it hunkers down and delivers plenty of power. Actually feels quite dramatic when you start to get on it a little bit more. Unfortunately, almost straight away into another restricted section. So back on the optional carbon ceramic brakes, giving us some confident stopping power. I hope that's not the extent of our opportunity to put the foot down a little bit with this car today. It is quite interesting though to me in Corsa how you can't go up into 7th. That must be more set up like an overdrive gear as opposed to the normal. It's not crazy loud in here, you know, even if I slow it down a section, there's nothing around us. You know, even in whatever gear you're in, it's not kind of an overwhelming sound inside the cabin of this. They've clearly made it quite a soft, easy car. You feel like you're very low to the ground, but you also feel like there's quite a decent amount of headroom up above. That's something I've noticed. I don't feel like I'm right up on the roof line like you often do if you're in, let's say, a Lamborghini or something like that. There's plenty of room if you do want to take this to the track to have a helmet on and not feel like that's going to be banging on the roof every 5 seconds. Back out onto some more open road. Sitting at about 180, 190 kilometers per hour. It's about 120 miles per hour, and it feels really quite stable. There is a fair amount of wind noise that you can hear. The mirrors seem like they're shaking a little bit. It is Italian after all. But this is where it gets on the power and delivers with a lot of torque. Very responsive. Very stable under heavy braking as well as we arrive at some traffic. I would perhaps like it to be a little bit more lively. I mean, you know, horses for courses, obviously it's not necessarily the primary purpose of the car. I think the fact that it starts in GT mode as opposed to a mode called normal or something tells you a little bit more of the intention. Just hoping we're going to get an opportunity to put the foot back down, and you can change the displays and you can bring up a full screen map and have some fun setting all of that how you like. Drop it down to 4th gear, road is open ahead of us. We're about to get up to about 250 kilometers an hour. There we go. Just shy of 270, which is about the max we can do on the winter tyres. 270 Ks being in the region of 265 miles per hour. 165, not 265. That would be quite an achievement. And I think at that speed, perhaps it loses some of the stability. Yeah, it does get back on the power really impressively though. Go up to the red line. 230 in fourth gear, 250, 260, 270 kilometers an hour, 280, and that's where we'll get onto the brakes. So we've done the VMAX that we can do today with this. I keep wanting to go into 7, forgetting that you can't in Corsa. My instinct is always just to pull that paddle and wait and see what happens, but alas, no go in there today. Anyway, great to see it getting on the move. I think perhaps it does move around more at higher speeds than I would have expected it to do so. I think the reality for Autobahn driving is that sport is plenty. You don't need to be in Corsa. And then obviously you get your 7th gear back as well. I'm going to exit here and head back in the other direction, slot in amongst the trucks. Notice that we need to change the indicator settings at the moment. Thankfully we've found a little bit of sunshine as well, but mid-range 4,000 RPM is where you get some of these cool sounds out of it. Drop it down into 3rd. Feels characterful, and that's half the fun, isn't it? So where I talked earlier about the confusion with the MC20, I really think comes down to the price point, where it sits. It is significantly cheaper than, say, the new Ferrari 296 GTB, obviously quite a lot less power as well, 200 horsepower less, but it's not trying to compete with that. It is, however, significantly more expensive than, say, the Lotus Emira, which looks similar in some ways, while being obviously significantly less powerful, 200 horsepower less, but for significantly less money. I actually quite like just driving it around a few roundabouts, slightly more normal driving. We've got a little bit of squeaking from the carbon ceramic brakes. Head around here, going through the corners. Feels nice. It just feels all round like a good car, if I can say. Not necessarily the craziest, most exciting car, but just a well-balanced car. You know, I'd love to drive it on track and drive it on a mountain pass, something like that, but what I'm doing with it today, just out in normal roads, you know, we'll head back into Cologne in a second as well. It does everything that you could ask of it, that you could, you know, feel that you want it to do. So we need to get overtaken by the truck so that we can pull out here onto the Autobahn, clear lane, and off we go, you know, foot back down, up to the red line. Watch those numbers build. Far from the fastest car in the world, but plenty quick. You do need to be very firm on the brake pedal. You need to give it a good press. The initial travel on the pedal doesn't give you all that much by way of braking, so a little bit of a mind shift to make sure you make the most of that. But you know, as we come back to a restricted section again, it's where we pop it back into GT, back into automatic, and you know, daily driver duties resumed with Maserati MC20. For the last 15 minutes or so, I've just been taking it easy, chilling, enjoying the drive, still in sport mode. Could go back into GT or go even softer and put it into wet, but just basically letting the car do its thing. And this is where you can appreciate what Maserati have tried to do with this, and perhaps I thought it was going to be more of a, I don't know, crazy supercar-esque feel, more along the lines of the MC12, which is really raw, the automated manual gearbox, and the V12, of course, the 6-litre naturally aspirated V12, a very, very different thing to what this is about. I think it's a car that looks fantastic, but is probably more a car that I would be a fan of with the electric powertrain. And I know that's a bonkers thing to say, but it doesn't make the hilariest of noises to begin with. So if you did that, it would fit it. It would really quite well fit it as an exciting electric mid-engine. I mean, mid-engine in appearance terms, obviously it's quite different. It depends whether they went with electric rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. Who knows what would be the choice on that. I think the ceramic brakes, obviously, in this car have done some good mileage already. I wouldn't necessarily consider them a must for something like this. I think it's quite an expensive option, and I would probably go with the car without. But when we're just driving along normally, it's really calm, it's really chill. That is certainly what the brief will have been when they were making this, to just make it a daily sports car. And I think perhaps you could argue, therefore, that the price point is actually quite high for what it is. You know, we are talking a car that here is 210,000 euros, in the UK is 180 something thousand pounds. It's not a cheap car, it's a very expensive thing. And you're into serious money at that point. When you look around at what's on the market, for example, Huracan Evo rear-wheel drive could be an alternative. And obviously, that would come with a naturally aspirated V10, and I would say a car that feels like it's more dramatic, a car that feels like it's more supercar, but also perhaps just slightly more premium, or slightly more of a category above. Not necessarily to shoot this, because what this comes with is an exclusivity and the Maserati brand, which is so exciting as well. But perhaps it's still a little bit confused, even though I tried to work out what the story with it actually is. I'm not sure what I think, but we will pull back in here now that we return back to base, because there's a little bit more I'd like to show you and take a look at when it comes to the interior and some of the other details about it. I haven't mentioned that it is very low. I'm aware that it's very low to the ground in terms of the aero and things going on underneath the car. Even when you just have small bumps on the ground like this, you've got to watch out and be careful. But it is a huge thanks to the team here at Maserati Köln, Jacob Sports Cars, for the opportunity to take this out today for a first drive and find out what it's all about. So I'll park it up back here. I'll show you a little bit more around. Alongside me here is a new Levante Trofeo, over 600 horsepower out of the Levante SUV, but I want to show you a little bit more inside the MC20, things we've touched on, but plenty more that this has going on as well. We've got that digital display in front of us. Now on this display, the left stalk controls the left side of it, so you can have the map up. If you press and hold that though, wait and see what happens. It brings up a full screen map, which is really quite nice. Press and hold that if you'd like to revert it back to the normal rev counter view. The stalk on the right controls the right hand side. As you can see, boost torque charts, tyre temps, pressures, or just turn off the screen completely. You get a live response to your brake and throttle. And then when you go through the different modes, it changes as well. So this is in GT. We go up to Sport, hold it and turn it up into Corsa, and you can see how that gives you the horizontal rev counter across the top, just making it slightly more visible, and also raises the revs at idle, so it's just a touch louder as well. Standard, as you can see, that drops it back down just to below 1000 RPM. Now the steering wheel has this nice satin carbon, this slightly squared off bottom. This is where you have your start stop button, the launch button on the other side, and your usual controls for things like the cruise control or whatever else you might need from it. Your light and mirror controls are just off towards that side, and then you've got the floating widescreen display in the center, and I do quite like this. Of course, it's you know, a unique system or software for Maserati. You do have to wait a moment for some things to load up, but it's a bespoke interface. It looks smart. We've got the various tablets and tiles, and you can set this up and configure it and change and do all sorts of various things, depending on what exactly you'd like to see out of it all, of course. So I like that. I'm surprised this isn't carbon fiber. Perhaps that could have been carbon, but we do have a nice mix of leather and Alcantara. We've got the Sonos Faber sound system. Not the biggest fan of these door grab pulls. I feel like they could wear quite easily. And then you have the door release button just here. When you've opened the doors, they need a real slam to make sure they close. If you just let them drop, they don't actually shut. The passenger footwell has this nice metal plate down at the bottom, but it's not the longest footwell, so taller passengers might have their knees being forced up a little bit. And then behind we've got the very small window through to the rear, can't see all that much, but these very nice seats, and it has to be said, these are really very good for this kind of purpose. They give you good side bolstering should you wish, but they're also very comfortable. Big shout out to the seats, I've enjoyed those, and in this case with the Trident embroidery in the yellow to match with the rest of the interior. In the rest of the central tunnel, you've got your wireless charging pad just down here, decent amount of storage space down in the shadows. Your mode selector, of course, as we've discussed, with the suspension button in the center, automatic or manual, reverse, and these perhaps could be a little bit nicer. They feel a little bit off, can we say. Your window switches, lock, toggle for your volume, media and things, and a small armrest storage with a USB port, but not a whole lot of space in there. Click that back down. The lines here, you can see from the stitching, it just doesn't quite line up, and I find that kind of thing a little bit awkward, we could say. Now, if we just open up the door for a second, give it a little blip. That actually sounds pretty good. It actually revs up quite fast and you get some very, very cool noises out of it. I'm going to switch this off though. I want to pop open at the front and show you there. But before we do, you can see all the chopped carbon around the doors. You know, lots of carbon fibre body panels and things. But just down here, if I can find it, we have the release catch for the front. We've got a Lamborghini revving in the background. Just come and open up this, because in the front here we have a small amount of storage, not exactly a lot. This is where you'll have your charger and your first aid kit and whatever else you might need on the road, just tucked into that small storage underneath the chopped carbon you have of the bonnet, just like on the rear section of the car as well. Click that back down into place. So there are some very nice details and touches to this car. And we have a look from around the rear. Perhaps there's a little bit too much of the satin black finish. Maybe it'd be nice to have that all in carbon, but no doubt at a very great cost were you to do so. And I do personally quite like the bluing of the titanium exhaust. I always think that looks good on a car as well. So I think it's a good looking thing. It's a very curious thing. And having now driven it, this is where I'm, you know, slightly on the fence about things. I don't necessarily think that the price point of this is that easy to justify as it is, but this is where I'm super excited for the electric one. I think the electric one is going to be absolutely spot on. It will fit the GT characteristics, this fairly soft, everyday type drive with lots of torque and lots of power. I'm really going to be interested to see what they do with that. For today, I want to say a big thank you to Maserati Köln, Jacobs Sports Cars, for the opportunity to drive the MC20 for the first time, to get a feel for it. And I can see for Maserati fans out there, this is going to be a really cool product. Great to have them back in the sports car world. Great to have such an exciting and good looking product back in the Maserati portfolio as well. Not to say that their other cars don't look fantastic, because they've always done a very, very good job with that. I think the future is exciting for the brand as well, with the different products that are on the horizon in the portfolio and things that are going to be coming along. So MC20, first drive here today in Germany, and an opportunity to get an experience for what it's all about, and I've very much enjoyed that. So thank you for watching as always, guys. That's it for this time though, and I'll see you again very soon. Cheers.